Gas warfare is a terrible monster. Once the gas got into your eyes or your nose, well, you were a dead duck because you couldn't breathe. You couldn't see. Your eyes would flow like a faucet. The water would just run down your cheeks and burn. I just think you're a goner. You're going to die right there. It's a terrible feeling. It's a lot worse than a bullet.
Today, we'll hear from Lieutenant Colonel Winston Roche. He served in the U.S. Army during World War I, including 12 months of combat in the trenches on the Western Front.
I was in 4 major battles. Château-Thierry, the Aisne-Marne front, and then Mihiel was the first big American push, and Meuse-Argonne was the worst. That was the bitterest, wickedest battle that we were in. You're scared all the time. If you know you're going over in the morning, you sleep fitfully, because you know that this could be your last night on earth as a mortal. You really feel that way. You really think, maybe this is my time, and you dread it. But you go, and you do the job you're told to do. And then you're elated when you have success.
Winston Roche enlisted in the Army straight out of high school. He was just 17 years old.
I had some vicious hand-to-hand combat, and by this time I was a man. I wasn't a kid anymore. You grow up overnight when you're under fire, where in a situation with these crashing shells all around you, and the constant noise, the misery, the uncomfortableness. You're either always sleepy as hell, hungry, or tired. In the Army, you never get to feel good. You don't in combat. To talk about combat and tell you what it's like is impossible. You don't think about killing a man per se, and that killing him. My reactions was just an object. There was a dark object out there right in front of me, and I had to pump 2 or 3 shots into it, which I did because I didn't think that I couldn't stop and think I might be killing some father or son. You can't think about those things. It's either him or you. When you're in the trenches, you are constantly, you're living in this special world, a soldier's world, where nothing matters but survival. And as I pointed out, they always say you don't ever have to worry about the bullet that's going to hit you because you never hear it. And if it kills you, it kills you. You have to be a fatalist. And you get so used to the buzzing of bullets, the explosions of shells, and the funny zinging sound of a mortar coming at you. And those were the things that were every day just like going out and having breakfast. Now we sometime were in the first wave that went over because we had to lead and snipped the wire to be damn sure our guys had a way to get through, and we also had to do police duty on watching back to see if there's anybody got hung up who was a stationary target. We had to go back. That was our job, to go back and get him loose. The rest of the troops were on their way to combat. They had to keep going ahead. The casualties were terrible. And I was wounded 3 times. I was machine gunned once through the side, knocked my rifle. This is interesting. I didn't even know my hit until my rifle flew out of my hand. And the bullet had already gone through my side, right between, clean as a whistle, between 2 ribs, and took off a chunk off my thumb, chunk out of this finger, and the top of that finger off, and knocked my rifle just out of my hand as clean as a whistle. And I wondered at first, what did I do? Or how'd that happen? I didn't even know I was hit. And then I thought, oh boy, was I lucky. It just hit my rifle, and then later on I got real wet in my drawers. And I thought I'd peed in my pants because I was so scared, but it was the blood running down my leg, see, running down my side, down my leg. It happened so quick, and you have to do with it. Not like me, when I picked my rifle up and kept on going. I did know that I was wounded. I got my rifle back. I knew I'd been hit by something, but I didn't think it was anything, luckily. Now, of course, that bullet had gone through my leg or my chest or something and hit something inside of me. It'd been a different matter. But I kept on going. We dreaded the gas. If the enemy had been used to using gas in our sector that we was in, we dreaded it because the gas masks were bulky, pain in the neck, hanging on your chest. They were in the way of everything you did. And they were hard to get on and off. It took time to get them out of their case. And if you had them on, if you had to wear them as you were advancing through no man's land, you were so very apt. There were so many ways to tear them. They were rubber, medium class rubber. They were wartime things, so you know the manufacturers didn't make everyone perfect. And some of them even didn't fit good, so that all you had to hang on to was to keep your nose plugged up, and so you didn't inhale through your nose, and try to keep it out of your eyes, because once the gas got into your eyes or your nose, well, you were a dead duck so far as any more action is concerned, because you couldn't breathe, you couldn't see. Your eyes would flow like a faucet. The water would just run down your cheeks and burn. And you've seen pictures probably in magazines of men coming back from gas attacks holding onto one another's shoulder with bandages over their eyes. That's because they're temporarily blind. And I've been that way twice. I was gassed twice. And one time, the second time, it was very bad. I was in the hospital for several weeks before I got back. And you think you're a goner, you choke, you can't see, and you burn to be hell. You just think you're a goner. You're gonna die right there. It's a terrible feeling. It's a lot worse than a bullet. Gas warfare is a terrible monster because first you can't see it in the dark. And usually most of the gas encounters we had were in the night, a dry night when it wasn't raining, and usually on a quiet front where a gas attack usually preceded a big attack. And this is the way they hope to get the first breakthrough our lines, by sneaking up on us and knocking us out with a gas attack. And it's similar to the smell of a skunk. Once you get a whiff of it, you never forget it. You know, the minute you get a little tiny whiff, you know right away there's gas in the air. It penetrates everything, penetrates your clothes. And in World War I, we had one uniform, one. We did everything in that one uniform, and you kept it as long as you were in action. If half of it got blown away, that's the way you put up with it. But there was no fatigues, no extra pair of boots. We had 2 pairs of underwear, one you had on. We had 1 shirt, 2 pairs of socks, 1 pair of pants, 1 blouse, 1 helmet. That's all. We lived on the cold coffee we had in our canteen and biscuits to hardtack. Biscuit about that thick and about 1.5 inches square, where you dunked it in cold coffee for you. If you try to bite it, you'd break your teeth. You'd have to put them and hit it to break it. It was so tough, so we'd just dunk it in coffee. We lived on those things.
During the conflict, Winston Roche trained with traditional rifles and pistols, as well as the awesome new weapons of war.
Oh, the Springfield, 30-06 Springfield. Oh, I was a wicked instrument that had a terrific kick, and it was heavy, and it was typical infantry rifle that they used, comparable to the later Winchesters that you saw the Army had later on. The Springfield had, I think it was 5 shots in it, and one time it was you had to pull the breech back, eject and inject the new bullet each time.
Dependable?
Very dependable. You throw them in the mud and let them lay there for a month and pick them out. If possible, wash them off in a shell hole and they'd shoot. Yeah, that was a good rifle. But that was our standard arm, Springfield and the Colt automatic, the Colt 45. Well, that was a good, but it jammed a lot. And we had problems with it. You had to keep it very clean. And that was your right arm, your automatic. Now, trenches were built mostly in zigzag. They're usually at minimum 6 foot deep if you had time to do it in order to get your head under the sniper's fire. Usually were over 6 foot because you had a plank. You'd have to throw planks at the bottom or you'd drown in the mud, in the water, things like this. There are basically 3 types of artillery shells I'm talking about my experiences. The 155s that's 155 millimeter. The big 155s were used for demolition in the rear. Support bases, ammunition dumps, roads preceding an assault, and things of this kind. If, for instance, say, lowered the range of the 155s directly in front of you, it was devastating, the noise. We all tried to wear earplugs. You had to, because when a shell bursts, a 155 exploding back there can knock you down. You can't stand up. The impact just flattens it. So usually there's an old saying in the Army, you never hear the one that hits you. So if you hear them coming, you get to the point where you think, well, I hear that sucker and it's not going to hit me. And so you hit the dirt, or get in the trench and duck, or you get in a shell hole, and then you have the concussion. And I've actually had my helmet blown off with the chin strap under my chin. And our main backup gun was the French 75 millimeter. And we had the machine guns and the mortars and things like this. Now we'll talk about tank warfare for a moment. We just happened to be in an area and fighting over terrain that was not amicable to tank warfare. So I never fought in front of or behind one of the big tanks, and we had a very, for its time, a very good tank invented by the British. And I forget the name of it, but it had a track that went clear around the tread, went clear around the length of the tank. It just moved all the time on this track. The modern tanks have tracks just around the wheels under the armor plating. But this one, the tread went clear around the length of the tank, one continuous speed. It just crawled on these two treads. Those were mostly in action on the British front and in the northern part of France. The tank that I did see, and I got to drive one, was a one-man French Renault, and it's a little tiny tank like a Model T automobile would have been in those days. Just room for one man in there, and you had your machine gun, 30 caliber, French machine gun, and the sensation of driving one of these things is terrible because it's terribly confining. And the engine, you're practically sitting on the engine, and the noise of the engine, the noise of the guns, and the concussions outside the tank, and the general, it's like being in a maelstrom of noise and racket and discomfort. It's terribly hot, and you're just tickle pink to get the damn thing back to where you can park it and get out of it. And but they were very effective. Infantry loved them. It was a feeling that you were invincible because you could hear the bullets hit the sides, and you could go right over the wire because it was powerful enough to tear the wire loose from the steel stanchions it was wound into. And lots of times you'd see an old tank trailing 200 or 300 feet of wire behind it as it advanced on the machine gun nest. And it could go right up to the machine gun apertures and stop and fire right into the apertures. They always welcomed them, because if they had a especially tough machine gun nest that were going to take a lot of men and a lot of lives to get, probably you could run right on up to it, just like your thumb in your nose out and go right up to it and shoot right into the aperture and clean them out. The first time that you get up in the air, you look down at the land, you all mischievous kids, we used to think, gee, it would sure be fun to drop that guy in the wagon down there, and just kid stuff. Well, very tempting. So naturally, the first thing that the Americans, and I guess the French did that too in the early parts of the war, and thought about that, to make your own bombs. So we take 3-inch shell casings and just chunk them full of all kinds of stuff, everything we could put in there, and make our own bombs, seal them up, put the fuse in. And we had different types of fuses, of course. We had detonators, and as well as live fuses. So we had all kinds of. American kids are that's the beauty of an American soldier. He's so resourceful. And we'd get up to altitude, and we would get over a road while we were supposed to be observing for enemy activity and everything. And we'd get over a road, and we'd see a line of trucks. So we'd try to work out our windage, and we'd let them go, see. And then we'd fire them back, and we'd try to watch the trajectory as they dropped. And sometimes we'd be 200 or 300 yards off target, because a bomb doesn't drop just straight like that. You got to figure the windage, and you have to work out the trajectory. And we had no smart bombs, they were just blah. And so we made some good hits. We got pretty good. The guys got, after you did it maybe 3 or 4 times, you got pretty good where you could come pretty close to it. So the bombers that we used to make and dump over the sides, they did pretty good damage. In the Argonne Forest, we saw some of the most beautiful air battles. The balloons, the observation balloons that all of the infantries would throw up to get a little look back behind the lines of the enemy to see what he was bringing up. And as I say, we didn't have radio from airplanes to the ground observers to an artillery emplacement where zero in is so many degrees, such an altitude, there's a big concentrate. We had to wait until the aircraft landed to give us the information that there was or several thousand troops massing on hill so-and-so, or coming up ravine so-and-so for an attack. This was all had to be done vocally, orally. So on our front, the sawmill front, there were 3 sausage balloons, observation balloons. One about 2 or 3 miles to our left, one almost immediately in front of us. Of course, they were about a mile from where they were all right behind the front lines, all of them observing. Now, this was just before we went into the Argonne Woods, which would be the battle that finished World War I. So we had won the Battle of Saint-Mihiel. And Saint-Mihiel was just a big bulge in the line, been there 4 years. until the Americans picked it as their first major action for an American army. So General Pershing and his generals worked out, and they flanked it. They went up the sides and squeezed it in instead of trying to make a frontal assault. And we cut off all the mainline troops. They were surrounded, and we flattened it out in 8 hours and pushed it 3 miles when we were finished, 3 miles into German territory. And that thing had been there for 4 years. They hadn't been able to get it out. We were resting because we were going over the top in the next morning into the Argonne, which proved to be 42 days of pure hell. 42 days we were in there without a bath or a relief, under fire all the time, losing men to beat hell. Well, anyhow, here are these 3 balloons, and there's a dogfight, beautiful dogfight going on in the sky. And to watch these little biplanes, they look like little toys. And they were slow, you know, 150 miles an hour was fast in those days. For instance, I remember that when I was flying the DH-4, I'd have to put it into a dive to get 135 knots. They'd cruise along. You could land at Jenny at 30, to put it succinctly, you could land at Jenny at 30 miles an hour. 30 miles an hour. And you took off at about 40. So that's how simple they were, see. But here are these little biplanes, graceful circles and loops and chandelles and Immelmans and trying to get on each other's tail. And many, many times we've seen 3 or 4 of them going on, and suddenly here will come up black smoke, trail of black smoke when it gets shut down, see. Well, okay, and we were focused on this dogfight going on, and finally one of the fellows suddenly said, "Hey, look, here comes one for the balloons. You're going to attack the balloons." So we all shifted our attention there. Sure enough, here comes this Fokker aircraft with the old black cross on it, and heading right for this balloon over Reneville, and they shoot tracer bullets. This is in order for the pilot to see if he hits the balloon. And you can see the white trail of the tracers go in one side of the balloon and come out the other. And you know that balloon's gone. And then he'd pull up over it, swoop down and head for them. He'd be right on level with them now. Of course, on the ground, we had a ring of Lewis and Browning machine guns shooting up. We try to put a ring of fire around the balloons. They shoot go right on through it. And he shot this one down, and we could see very plain the bullets entering it and going out, coming out the other side. And I remember, I think I was the one that said, "Oh God, he missed all 3 of them," because there they were all still hanging. He's zooming off into the distance. And then here comes another one, airplane, chasing towards him. And it was an American, and they said later, I can't verify this, but they said it was Eddie Rickenbacker, and he was on that front. His squadron, the 95th Hat in the Ring Squadron, was on that front. So it could have been that they said it was him. He was heading for this guy. Well, then about that time that we saw Rickenbacker, if that was him, go across, the first one exploded, one great big whoop, just like that. And then suddenly, just a few seconds, whoop, this one goes up, and then all 3 of them, they go up and they burn the inside. See, the bullet ignites it inside. It doesn't explode right now. It kind of builds, I guess, until it gets a certain amount of air, and up it goes. just like an explosion, and they dropped like a plummet. So we saw 3 balloons shot down, and then we saw the dogfight, and the American pilot got, whoever he was, got the German plane, shot it down. So it was a beautiful show. Right there, everything right in front of us. So we never forget that. So you got to go after them and do it first. You got to be aggressive, and if you want to look at it that way, mean. And you adopt an attitude, a fatalistic attitude of you don't know whether you're going to be here tomorrow or not. And so you live for today. You never make any plans. And we also we were instructed, try not to make too good a friendship with. Be friendly to everybody, of course, and cooperative, but don't make any, if you can help it, don't make anybody buddy, because you might be transferred the next day, one of you, or you might be killed. So then you'd be devastated and you wouldn't be a good soldier anymore. You have to be a professional. You have to learn that it's either him or you. And so to talk about and think about killing a man, you don't. You just do your job and take care of the enemy to keep him from getting you or your buddies. That will sustain you. And then you have your own private thoughts of your home, your loved ones, the wonderful comforts you've left behind. And it gets to the point, if you've been there 6 or 8 months in almost constant action, in this continual deafening noise, you can't believe how this affects you. Now, you've heard of PTSD, post-traumatic syndrome from Vietnam. Okay, I know what they mean. What they're talking about is shell shock. And we had it in gobs in World War I. I had 2 bad attacks of it, and it affected my nerves. And well, you can see I've been like this ever since I came out of the Army. And this is post-traumatic syndrome, and it's a big deal in Vietnam. We came home with no treatment whatsoever for it, but that's another story. So, as I say, your stomach is in butterflies, and if you're not scared, you're in trouble. There's something wrong with you, because, boy, you better be scared, and you better duck, and you better hit those shell holes when you get a chance. It's like, just like trying to tell you how good a good glass of beer is on a hot day. You can't explain it, you have to be there.
That was World War I veteran Lieutenant Colonel Winston Roche. Lieutenant Colonel Roche was 93 years old when he recorded this interview. 2 years later, in 1994, Roche passed away in Los Angeles, California, at the age of 95. Warriors in Their Own Words is our attempt to present an unvarnished, unsanitized truth of what we have asked of those who defend this nation. Thank you for watching, and by doing so, honoring those who've served. This program was produced by Evergreen Podcasts and Documentary.tv. I'm your host, Ken Harbaugh. If you've enjoyed this episode, please comment, share, and subscribe below.